coming. I'm glad we have so many folks. My name is Dr. Zabalarison. I might have taught you or worked with you in any other capacity, or you might know me from Psyché. Excited to have you all here today. Dr. Mattia Della Rocca is someone I met in 2021 while teaching abroad in Rome. He is a true scholar and a really eloquent speaker. So I'm so excited to have him speak with you today. He's going to do this thing where he says, oh, excuse my language, and he's more eloquent than most English speakers that I know. So don't believe him when he tells you that he isn't going to be able to communicate, because he really will. I'm going to leave it to you to tell a little bit more about your background, but for now, welcome to Psyché. Everyone should get up and go get pizza as needed, yourself included, and we're excited to hear your talk today.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you all, guys. So, first and foremost, nice to meet you all, and thank you all for having come here tonight. It's, 7 p.m. lecture. It's a very hard thing everywhere, not just in the States, even in Italy. And thank you for the pizza. I really appreciated the choice. I mean it. I want to apologize, even if Alex said the contrary, for my broken English and for my terrible accent, but at least I won't say mamma mia. What about me? As Alex told you, I am a PhD in philosophy and history of science, and I've got this double training because I am a psychologist too. And I teach psychology at the med school of my home school, the University of Rome Tor Vergata, that those of you who have visited Italy, maybe you have heard about. And I'm also a full faculty member of the Graduate School of Dynamic Psychotherapy, Psyché, and I'm a proud member of CIE Italy. This is the reason why Alex and I met and the first time. And recently, not so recently actually, I'm getting older. 5 years ago, I started researching and teaching a class that I built from scratches. The name of the class is Psychology of Digital Environments, and just like the name suggests, I focus exactly on this, the way our digital world interacts with human cognition, human behavior, our emotional world, and so on. This was something that I am very proud of, because for the very first time I had the opportunity to teach in an Italian university, applying the American method. So it was something that was very community-based. The class, my students just had the opportunity to talk. This is very different from what we do in Italy. In Italy, usually we do just lecture-based education. And this is the reason why the several classes through the years, some ways decided the direction that we had to take. And 3 years ago, after a very interesting semester, we started getting more and more interested in artificial intelligence. And this is the reason why the name of the chair changed into Psychology of Digital Environments and Artificial Intelligence. But I would like to immediately discard an option. I'm not interested in the idea, the alleged idea that machines one day could start thinking or having a consciousness or stuff like that. The Skynet hypothesis, if you like, all the sci-fi movies. Because, yes, technically speaking, as a philosopher, I have to admit this could be possible, but there's nothing on site that suggests something like that. So what I mean when I say psychology of artificial intelligence, I mean the ways these new technologies are enabling and engendering specific behaviors, specific cognitive processes, sometimes just exploiting very ancient psychological devices that we have hardwired in our brain, in our mind, like, for example, social cognition, and everything that is related and subsequent to this. For example, we started studying with somebody, actually you know, Giorgia, Martina and Surya, my TAs, replica and social companions and people who fall in love with artificial intelligence. This is our main core topic today. Sorry, you see my broken English. And in the next lectures that I will deliver here at Tulane, I will address also this kind of issue. But today, since the opportunity to talk for the Psyché Honor Society, and since I have the privilege of delivering this lecture to you, undergrad students, just like I was a few years ago, indeed, I would like to tell you something different, something that maybe could be useful for your career too. And I would like to discuss which kind of effects artificial intelligence is having. All the developments of this new technology have as an impact, a possible outcome on your careers, my career, our careers. And this is the reason why I also picked up this title here. Actually, I mean, you know, I'm European, so I'm quite obsessed with putting together a lot of references to history and literature, and all the 3 lectures that I will deliver here in New Orleans have titles that are inspired by some novels or some pieces of literature. And the novel inspiring this lecture is Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. It's a 1932 dystopian novel by one of the most famous British novelists of his time. And in fact, the title of the novel is itself inspired by another masterpiece of the literature, of theater actually, Shakespeare's The Tempest. And this is the Miranda's speech when she, in a very naive way, take a look at the world for the first time and says, oh wonder how many goodly creatures are there here, how beauteous mankind is, a brave new world that has such people in it. Our world is full of people, but today, and starting since at least 6-7 years, we have started seeing in a very specific niche of our world, the digital niche, also the appearance of new agents. I'm meaning agents in the psychological meaning of the term, cognitive agents that are artificial ones, not actually intelligent agents, but I mean, AI is something that pretends to be human-like, but as 2 very important American scholars in 1928 say, Thomas and Thomas, in a very interesting book, The American Child, about developmental psychology, they wrote, if men define situations as real, they are real also in their consequences. And I can't imagine something more real than the consequences that we are facing in relationship to this explosion of this new technology, artificial intelligence. And I guess that, like me, you all made an intensive and extensive use of AI. I can't remember the last time I replied by myself to a letter to my dean, that I hate, by the way. But what about our profession? What about your future profession? Whatever it will be. I don't know what your area of expertise will be. I think that notwithstanding your individual choices, maybe you are already concerned, or you will be concerned about this intrusion, this invasion of artificial intelligence within the field of psychology. This is something that is concerning, in fact. Artificial intelligence is just reshaping literally everything around us, from writing some text, generating images, creating new art, sometimes new music, and psychology is not an exception to this. This new disruptive technology offers, on one hand, very promising possibilities and opportunities to us. But on the other hand, there is the risk, that is a real risk, an actual one, that our profession can be threatened by this, just like any other cognitive profession. And I think that there are some fields of psychology that are more affected by this transformation, namely clinical psychology, counseling, psychological training, and also psychological research. I would like to make some examples to you, rooting this course that I am giving to you right now into the States. In February 25, the FDA, as of February 25, sorry, the FDA has approved at least 2 artificial intelligence powered softwares that are aimed to substitute psychotherapists. I am referring to Wysa, that was the first one to be cleared by the FDA. That is this conversational agent, or a chatbot, as we usually say, everybody usually say, that is crafted and designed to deliver cognitive behavioral therapy to people suffering from depression, anxiety, and even chronic pain. Together with Wysa, you have Rejoyn, that has been cleared a little later in this respect. That is this prescription-only digital therapeutic smartphone app that is aimed to treat major depression in patients suffering from this mental health condition. This is something that has been presented to the public as some sort of a very powerful tool for boosting compliance. But if you take a look at it, you can actually see that this works in a way that is more similar to a therapist that we would like to admit at first, and even the developers would like to admit, still relying on cognitive behavioral therapy as the main method, the main approach for enacting its goals. And then there is another one that has received a lot of attention by the public, both in the States and in Europe, this Woebot. This actually hasn't been cleared yet by the FDA because it's undergoing a clinical trial, the WB001. This is the model that is currently under scrutiny by the FDA and by other governmental agencies. This is a more all-encompassing mental health chatbot, and is probably, at least in the mind of its developers, is some sort of Swiss knife for treating every single of the most common mental health conditions, mental illnesses, especially in adolescents and in young adults. So we're talking about anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and other trauma-related issues. And I know that sometimes when I do this kind of lecture, even in Italy, people say to me, "Oh, Mattia, you're just adopting that kind of sci-fi perspective that you say you don't want to apply to your research." But one day after the beginning of the new American administration, Representative Schweikert from Arizona actually proposed to pass a bill in the Congress that was meant to amend the federal FDA Act, Food and Drug and Cosmetic Act, to clarify that artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies can qualify as a practitioner eligible to prescribe drugs if authorized by the state, involved and approved, cleared, or authorized by the FDA, and for other purposes. These other purposes are psychotherapy, mostly, and counseling. So no, we are not talking about sci-fi. We are talking about something that the current administration of the States is thinking about. And even in a country like mine that has very different situation, very different issues in respect to today's America, the situation is not very different because even if we do not have some people in the European Parliament or in my national parliament trying to advocate for this kind of technological disruption into the field of psychology and psychotherapy, we are very concerned by the way ChatGPT is being used by a lot of people, especially people of your age, Gen Zers, but also Gen Alpha, and probably in the next few years, I mean, also those very little kids today that will start getting more and more involved in the use of these technologies. I have recently been in touch because of several interviews I gave in my country with the National Order of Psychologists and with several schools of psychotherapy, because I am studying this misuse of ChatGPT as a surrogate for counseling and psychotherapy. I guess that you are all familiar with TikTok as a technology. I'm familiar with TikTok too, but I just lurk because I cannot dance. I guess that you all have seen at least a couple of contents, even in the last weeks, of somebody saying, I am trusting more ChatGPT than my therapist or my friend in order to tell it my dreams, my aspirations, my ambitions, my dark thoughts. And this is something that is quite concerning because as a scholar in this field, as far as now, my research group has counted at least 12 cases of suicide related to this kind of use of ChatGPT and other social companions, including one of the most famous of them that is called Replica. Maybe you ever heard about it. And the bad news don't stop here, actually, because as you have known for sure, as you have heard about, 1 month ago, a Chinese company released another large language models. Its name is DeepSeek, that is able to have the same kind of power, the same kind of results that very common large language models like ChatGPT or Gemini, for example, have, but at a fraction of a cost in terms of computational power. And this means that this kind of softwares, starting from, guess the next 6 months, could be run also on personal computers out of the network of calculation and power of calculation of these very big companies like OpenAI or other names that you can have in your mind. And these will add even more risks to this scenario, because this means that we are gonna be completely cut off of any possibility to oversight what is going on. And this is what is concerning. Not that now the very big companies are revealing their data, absolutely not. But this is something that can be even more concerning. And finally, then I promise I'm gonna stop with the bad news and I will start silver lining a little, sorry. AI is here to stay. This is not something that, we cannot get back. Once you have made this technology something popular and familiar, you just can't get back. And I am listening to a lot of colleagues of mine in Italy, in all Europe, even here in the States, telling me, what should we do? Should we just be concerned? Can we beat artificial intelligence? No, of course not. But this doesn't mean that we cannot try to govern it, to rule it, to inform the developments of AI in a direction that, if you allow me to use this expression, will get us in a position from which we can use AI and not getting used by it. And this is something that is extremely important for the next wave of psychologists like you will be and you will be in a few years, in a very few years. Let's put it this way: AI should enhance our profession. This shouldn't be detrimental to us and should not dictate the way we will be psychologists or psychotherapists or researchers or counselors, you name it. There are several things that are already on site. We can use AI for diagnostics, for some aspects of therapy, and without a doubt for research. But in fact, today I would like to share with you what my research group has defined as some sort of landscape of possibilities for achieving more advancements in a good direction for our profession. This is something, an image that we are bringing in our lectures in these last months, and it is currently in press in a European journal of psychology, still under the peer review process. We call it the Psychology AI prism, just like a prism when you have some white light, some sunlight passing in it, starts showing all the colors of the spectrum. If we imagine that our expertise, our professions, our perspective on science and society is able not to be captured by AI, but it's able to pass through it, well, we can start seeing the colors of this silver lining that I'm trying to do to you, with you today. And I think, we think that there are at least 5 areas of this positive relationship between psychology and AI that should be taken into account. Namely, software development, clinical supervision, education and training in our field, quantitative and qualitative research, and the ethical oversight of the whole process. So let me give you some insights for each one of these areas of possible intersection. And let me start from the very bottom, because I think that we can do a difference, we can make the difference, especially, or better, even when in those rooms that today we imagine correctly, populated just by engineers or ICT technologists. Actually, I think it's a blessing for you that you have the psychology department in a science and engineering department. This can be very useful for interdisciplinary exchange. Let's put it this way. There is something that everybody knows about. AI is biased in a terrible way. And I mean, in a terrible way. It doesn't matter if you are a woman, if you are a person belonging to a specific minority, if you are a member of the LGBTQ community, if you are not a white, cisgender, heterosexual guy, you are just a victim of everything that happens when you interact with AI. And this is something that in several occasions, in several times, we had the opportunity to lecture about Italian students and Italian colleagues. What we are trying to deliver to our audience in the last months is the fact that psychologists should be the guys, should be the professionals in charge of mitigating, or better, completely eliminating these kind of biases, acting at the very root of this process, at the very beginning of this process, when you are developing new AI-powered softwares. There are several studies in this respect from MIT. I guess you know Joy Bulamwini and her amazing work about racism in AI, especially in facial recognition. But it's not just about the face of non-white people. It's also about what happens when you have verbal interaction, a linguistic interaction with this kind of softwares. There are studies that have passed all peer review processes that shows very clearly that the last model of ChatGPT, GPT-4, exhibits a lower empathy level toward all Black and Asian users compared to white users. And something very similar happens to women. I cannot imagine somebody who could be better at mitigating this kind of issues, this kind of terrible but subtle forms of racism within, or racism and sexism and homophobia and transphobia during the process of development of these softwares, but the psychologists. After all, we have always been the guys, the scientists, just like the Clarks, no, in the very famous Brown versus the Board of Education trial at the Supreme Court said, psychologists are the one showing that what seems normal is not normal at all, is not right, even if it seems normal. And this is the reason why psychologists should consider also this kind of profession within their trajectory, within your trajectory, your future. The idea of working with developers or companies, or maybe even starting a company like that, will promote fairness and justice, equality, and inclusion in AI interactions, in the development of this kind of softwares. And another interesting thing is that even those of you that are who are interested, for example, just in the most experimental parts or the most theoretical part, like for example, if you are interested in cognitive psychology, the hardcore one, the study of processes like metacognition, critical thinking, decision making, everything that made psychology the science that it is today. These are all areas of expertise that can contribute in a radical way in making these softwares something better than they are today. I strongly suggest you to read the paper by Ganapini about this. And even if you are interested in a career or in an academic career that is more related to communication, linguistic interaction, or just the study of language, well, this is something that you can add, that you can put on the table of a new idea of thinking AI. These chatbots all rely on natural language processing. That is a software that is able to understand, in a lot of brackets, to analyze is probably better, natural language, the language that we use in every single day, and provide a sound or at least a quite good answer to the prompt, to the solicitation that is provided by the prompt. Well, who better than psychologists know the nuances of language, the ways, plural, by which emotions interact with our semantic, with the context of our conversations, with the real goals that lie behind human-to-human communication. Just psychologists are the one that can align this kind of software to an experience that fits the user's expectations. Users always are humans, and this is something that won't just ameliorate the ethical scenario behind these softwares. This is something that will also ameliorate user experience. Actually, psychologists should be considered what they are, the most important resource for anybody who wants to develop this kind of softwares. And this is just the first point, actually, because there is something more. We started from a plethora of examples related to therapy and to counseling, and I would like to give you a different perspective about how this relationship can happen. I want to be frank with you. I want to be very honest with you. I believe that Carl Rogers once said in a very beautiful book on becoming a person that you need a person. You need to be a person, and you need to let other people becoming a person if you want to enact that transformative power that is at the very core of therapy. So I believe, if you ask me, I mean, in an honest way, my 2 cents, I believe that machines will never be able to substitute us. But I think that this doesn't matter, not just because I am nobody, as these are just my 2 cents, but because, I mean, a lot of people, think about all those 16 years old I was referring to before, they just don't notice. And it's very, very easy to fall in this kind of trap. If we will meet again in the next lectures, I will tell you why, for example, people, like very young people, are very reluctant to go to a therapist today because they fear the stigma. Your generation is so aware, so thoughtful, but at the very same time so sensitive, even braver than my generation, about mental health. But this means, for example, that you know very well which kind of backlash is a stigma have. And so this means that a lot of people just don't care about going to a human psychotherapist, and they prefer to go to ChatGPT. This is something I would like to completely remove from the equation, because I just hate this kind of perspective. Even if I know that, for example, in a country like yours, where the healthcare system is regulated by insurances, probably insurances would prefer an AI-based psychotherapist because it's cheaper than a human one, okay? So let's try to turn this upside down, okay? Let's try to make this, to see this from a different perspective. How can we use this kind of tools for doing a better clinical supervision? Actually, supervision is the key word. Supervision here is the point, because if we get back believe into thinking, to thinking that AI is a tool for psychologists, well, the situation changes a lot, and changes in a way that can enhance rather than compromise patient care. For example, one thing that you should get used to, you should get prepared to do in the next few years is the fact that probably you will be the ones in charge of assessing which kind of treatment should be delivered to specific patients. Even if you don't develop new softwares, psychologists and psychotherapists will be in charge of deciding which software will be the best one for a specific patient. After all, not all patients can benefit from the same AI. Developers already know this. This is the reason why one of those softwares is aimed for depression, the other one just for anxiety, and so on. But who should be in charge of deciding this? Not healthcare insurances, not the patients themselves. Psychologists, psychotherapists should do this. And in this way, we will put back the humane factor in this kind of technological perspective on psychotherapy. Because, for example, a human being, a skilled and trained psychotherapist will be able to decide, for example, okay, now you're done with this. Now this is something that starts getting detrimental. Have you ever realized, have you ever thought about the fact that if you leave somebody suffering from any kind of condition free to use this kind of technology, maybe he or she could develop a bad coping habit. This is something that could lead to comorbidity in the long run. Without a psychologist, without a psychotherapist behind this technology is just detrimental to the mental health of people. It's not something that can benefit them. And then there is also everything that is related to the evaluation of the impact of this stuff. Because it's not just about ensuring an interaction that is driven by quality, that is driven by a real will to take care of the mental health of people. Psychologists are the only one that are actually entitled to evaluate the emotional and behavioral impact of these technologies on patients. Okay, it's undeniable. Sometimes I do this myself. No, I start talking with Siri or talking with ChatGPT. How many times we have said thank you to ChatGPT, and we knew that that was just a machine, right? This is something that we cannot escape. This is something that our evolution has hardwired in our brains, and so every single time we listen to somebody speaking in natural language, we immediately say, ooh, this is a person, so I have to treat this as a person. At first, this can be comfortable. Okay, I am suffering from anxiety, for example, and it's 4 a.m., I have nobody next to me, and I want to chat with somebody. I want to have some human touch, some human connection. And even if it's a plastic one, if it's a fake one, I can find some relief. But what happens, for example, when we get back to those examples I was making before, and the chatbot starts making a very racist or sexist comment to me? Have you heard about that recent case of Leave, that chatbot by Meta, the Facebook company? Take a look at there is a very interesting episode of the podcast of the NPR. Actually, your professor just shared this with me this morning. I knew about this. A chatbot meant, in a lot of brackets, to mimic and the culture of a black woman developed by white men. Same old story, this happens all the time. But what happens when people suffer from this kind of interaction? And who should be behind all this in order to say, okay, this is detrimental, we have to stop this? And just imagine this not in an ordinary, plain conversation. Imagine this in a conversation that is supposed to be therapeutical. Sorry for my accent. Clinical supervision is something that just psychologists can do, and this should involve monitoring the patient feedback that are consequent to the subsequent to the interactions with the AI. Identifying any signs of over-reliance, because this is another important issue, over-reliance. Sometimes we can get addicted to people. Why shouldn't we get addicted to AI? And again, in therapeutical and clinical context, we should downplay the importance of these technologies and making them just what they are, tools for human intervention on other humans. And I'm going to continue with another field that hopefully, I am a researcher. I never took my psychotherapist license. I wanted to be a professor in my life. I made it, so I stopped with taking exams. And hopefully, I wish that some of you will take this path. Scientific research is so beautiful indeed and so useful to humanity, to all mankind. AI is already transforming all of the landscape related to research, and this is probably the area of intersection where you can spot, where you can immediately recognize a lot of opportunities in this respect. Both for quantitative and qualitative methodologies, I would like to give some examples of what we think, what my research group thinks we can do. For example, statistics. Already passed the statistics exam. I took it 4 times. It was a very hard time during my bachelor's year. But apart from these anecdotes that I could share about me trying to do it by hand and then studying R, that is the most famous software that we use today, that I am the mentor of some young, brilliant students like you are. After having made my mathematics, I immediately double check with artificial intelligence. Even ChatGPT is a very powerful tool in this respect. And this is something that can give a boost to your research. You just have to use it in an ethical way, and remembering that this is not a surrogate, not even for making research, but you can be more precise and more predictive also in analyzing something that when I was a student was like a nightmare. No? You have 52,000 surveys to analyze, and you have to make, I don't know, quantitative analysis on Likert scales, and it was like, whoa. No? Now I have to spend the next 3 months of my life putting data into an Excel file. Now you can move faster in this respect, but there are even more interesting applications of this kind of technologies. For example, recently, I strongly suggest you to read these papers by Tong and colleagues. It's very recent, it's on arXiv. I will give you all of the references by the end through Professor Sims. Tong and his colleagues have made a very interesting study. They put together large language models, so the kind of machine learning models that make ChatGPT and other chatbots run with knowledge graphs, causal knowledge graphs, something that I guess you already know. It's a way of representing specific variables, especially in experimental design. And they have been able to create an artificial intelligence that can be predictive in the sense of generating new psychological hypotheses for experiment design. This is something, if you have already taken an experimental design class, you know what I'm talking about. This is something that is a very delicate process, something that is a very time-consuming process. We can actually be helped by this, as long as, just like we have seen before, we always keep the human factor at the very center of all this. We should be in control, always, at any time. And what about qualitative research? This is something I am very fond of. I want to tell this to you. I love qualitative research, and especially because, as you have understood, I am very focused on studying relationship between humans and AI. So I need to make a lot of qualitative research when I, for example, make sentiment analysis or language analysis. Well, these kind of tools can give you actually a boost. There have been so many studies in the last 2 years, and we see the numbers of them growing day by day, day after day. For example, taking 100,000 contents posts on social media and making the sentiment analysis of them. This can be a game changer, for example, for understanding very large processes, very large phenomena, also in social psychology. That is something that can actually give us a new perspective on a lot of different issues, especially in a globalized world that relies more and more on social media to communicate. But think about, for example, everything that can be detected, if trained properly, on the look of somebody's face, the facial expressions that since Charles Darwin and then with Paul Ekman have made up an important cornerstone of our scientific discourse. 75 to 80% of all the communication happens non-verbally, and we can be the best researchers in the whole world, and just like it happens to you, it happens to me, it happens to your professors. There is that day when you are so tired that you are about to miss that detail on somebody's face. The machines you train won't miss that detail. And this is what can give you a different perspective on what you're studying, okay? And furthermore, since I know that Tulane University, I'm so flattered to be here, is so strong and so focused on clinical psychology and developmental psychology. I have seen, I was like a kid, at the zoo or at Disneyland, looking at all the posters from your professors and the several research groups. I have seen how much you are interested, for example, in carrying on structured interviews or semi-structured interviews. Now think about which kind of possibilities you can have in applying a technology that can make the analysis of, I don't know, 100,000 interviews in a snap. This is something that can give a boost to your research and can give a boost to the whole psychological scientific knowledge. And furthermore, it can make the result be more dynamic and ecologically valid. That is something that should be always the final goal to be achieved in psychological research. Moving on, education and training in psychology. I got a few things to tell you about this. Because AI can actually become a very invaluable tool for training future psychologists. I don't know if some of your professors already employ these. In Europe, we are making very giant leaps in this direction. Why? Think about it. Think how many times you could profit of simulations, for example, or any kind of virtual, but virtual just in bracket, because as Thomas and Thomas said, the effects, the consequences of a situation are real if you define the situation as real. Think about which kind of benefits you could have by engaging yourself in simulated therapy, role-playing exercises with virtual patients that are crafted in order to reflect specific features of specific mental conditions. Do you know that the second chatbot ever created in the history, Perry, was made in order to simulate a patient with schizophrenic paranoia, and was made just for having a better understanding of what the language of paranoia was? Think about which kind of achievements we could have by going on this road, by moving forward on this road. We could simulate a lot of psychological conditions, and this is something we are doing in Europe. In Spain, at the University of Barcelona, the psychiatry department is providing training to young psychiatrists and psychotherapists alike by giving them this chatbot that they have developed that can or can't, it depends, of course it's a blind, random choice, express itself as somebody with anxiety or not. It's a training for allowing young students, young psychotherapists to recognize more in an easier way signs of anxiety in somebody you're talking with. Guys, the improvement also in the grades and in the results of these students has skyrocketed, more than 80% of positive results in this case. And there is also something, please Alex?
Giving you a time warning.
Yeah, I'm already finished, almost finished, sorry. And there is something that you can do in respect to the ethical training and decision making. You're just students, but I have the privilege of teaching in a graduate school of psychotherapy with a dynamic approach, and schizophrenia is the most important of all the mental conditions. We treat them, they treat them, my colleagues treat them. You have no idea which kind of ethical dilemmas you will face the first time you will have in front of your face somebody suffering from psychosis. So how would you deal with that? You could have an impressive and wonderful mentor like Professor Sims. Of course, you are very lucky. But if you have not, what will you do? Will you be able to handle that situation for the very first time without previous training? In this way, we can add this kind of training to your education. And finally, guys, the ethical oversight, because we need it. We just need it. I mentioned the racism behind all these, I mentioned the bias behind all these, I didn't mention the fact that when you share your dreams or when you share your anxiety with ChatGPT, who actually knows where the data are going? Who actually knows who owns the data? Or better, we know that there is a company owning that data, but is this something that complies with, the several different standards that we have? HIPAA in the States, the European GDPR, the APA ethical guidelines. The American Psychological Association is the association of reference for the whole world. Take a look at the Instagram account of the APA, and you will see that just 3 weeks ago, one of the members of the APA board expressed its utmost concern for this kind of loss of data, this kind of lack of transparency about this data. This is something that doesn't involve just us, doesn't relate just to us, also to our patients, to your patients, to the people we should take care of. Okay, and this is another major point. So guys, in conclusions, I just want to thank you for your attention, first and foremost. My first lecture in the States, my first time in the States, and I feel like I had just the best public, the best audience I could have for a lecture like that. I hope that you will be aware for the rest of your life about how much unique and how much valuable your contribution to this new development of our scientific, technological landscape of our society will be. It's only psychologists that can make all these AI things something more effective, more ethical, and really user-centered, or better, really users-centered, because it's always very important to remind about that plurality of perspectives that we should take these. So guys, thank you again. I hope I haven't bored you to death, and I hope that you haven't been scared by this very European suit that I was wearing today. This is the reason why I want to thank you with a green wave sweater and some beads from New Orleans. Thank you for your attention. If you want, keep in touch. Thank you.